Hello, and welcome to episode 8 of the Holistic Lifestyle Guide podcast. In this episode, we're going to talk about the 4 things that all healthy foods have in common. Without me actually explaining this, you might already know because if you are a healthy eater, you probably already keep track of this sort of thing. But if you're kind of new to learning how to eat healthy, I'm going to make it very simple for you in this episode. Because it can be incredibly difficult to keep up with all of the health news and the diets and the warnings and all of the studies and even different opinions out there. Because like one minute you'll hear something is good for you, the next minute you hear it's not, so you don't know who to trust. And that is why I decided to talk about this subject. So I'm going to give you the 4 things that all healthy foods have in common so you no longer have to wonder or question it. You will be able to go to the grocery store and come home with a cart full of healthy food and not worry about whether or not you made some bad choices. So, how do you know if a food is healthy or not? The first question that I ask myself is it a whole food? This is the simplest of all the questions, and this is also the one that I always ask first. So, whole foods are any food that comes from the earth, whether that be the ground, a bush, a tree, or a plant. It's a food unprocessed and pure. So, examples of this include fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and that's as opposed to refined grains, there's a difference. Some other whole foods would be beans and legumes and nuts and seeds. And you might have heard these food groups named a lot when it comes to diets. Some of the healthiest diets in the world all will tell you to eat fruits, vegetables, grains, beans, legumes, nuts, and seeds, pretty much. So, how can you tell if something is a whole food? Well, like I said, it's something that comes out of the earth. And so, what this is going to be is when you're in the grocery store and you're in the produce section, it's pretty much going to be everything in the produce section there. And that's how you can stay safe, guaranteed that you're going to be getting whole foods is if it's in the produce section because produce contains fruits and vegetables. So, moving on to the second question, is it heavily processed? So even some whole foods can be heavily processed, so this can be a tough question, but you're always safe if you buy food in its fresh form as opposed to from a box or a can. Most of the time, foods that come in a box or a can have been processed in some way. There are exceptions though, so check the labels. It's always a good idea to read your ingredient labels, and if there's any ingredients that you can't pronounce, chances are it's been heavily processed. So, and that brings me to the third question is, are there any harmful chemicals added? Those are the ones that you can't pronounce that you see on the ingredient list. Some of these may not be harmful exactly, but if you are going for a strict whole food diet, you won't be doing yourself any favors if you buy something with weird names in the ingredient list. And like I said, this might be kind of tough because you have to learn what these words are. And there are some sources that I follow. I'll just give you one off the top of my head. There is a YouTube channel that is just invaluable when it comes to learning ingredient labels, and that is Flav City. It's spelled Flav City. It's a guy that a lot of his videos are cooking, so he'll show you cooking healthy meals, usually on a budget with healthy food. And then some of his other videos involve him going to the grocery store and taking you along with him. And he gets to show you the ingredients on the products that he buys. And I can't get enough of his channel because I learn something new every time. He's even got a book, and the book will have, you know, all the bad ingredients and some of the ways that you can get around buying them. So that again is Flav City. I will leave a link in the podcast show notes so that you can check him out. So moving on to the last question to ask to find out if your food is healthy, was it grown using antibiotics or pesticides? This can be hard to know for sure. A lot of products claim that they don't use antibiotics or pesticides, but in order to be 100% sure, you would have to buy it directly from the farmer who grew it, which is why I am such an advocate of farmers markets. Farmers markets are hands down one of the best ways to get food. I buy my food from them whenever I can. Otherwise, I just stick to the produce section for the most part in the grocery stores because it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it if you just stick to the produce. And this does require you to learn how to cook and make recipes. And so if you're not a cook, if you don't have the time, if you don't like to cook, there's some simple recipes out there, or you can buy. I think there's some programs now where you can actually pay to have food delivered, and it's healthy food, and then they send you like the recipes, like everything that comes in it comes in it, so there's no guesswork. Also, you can buy things that you just can bring. Like, let's say you're going to work and you're not a cook and you don't have any food for lunch, you could just grab a bunch of fruit, a bunch of vegetables that are easily eaten by themselves without being cooked. So there's ways around that. I mean, I know it's not easy, trust me. I didn't always used to be a cook, but the more I got into healthy eating, the more I learned how to make things, and there's ways to make things taste good. So like vegetables, a lot of people don't like vegetables. I never used to either, but there's a lot of herbs and spices out there that make it so easy for them to taste better. So in conclusion, all healthy foods have these four things in common. They are whole foods, they were not processed, they were not grown with antibiotics or pesticides, and they have no harmful chemicals added. Like I said, to be safe, shop mostly at farmers markets, health food stores. A lot of just regular grocery stores have organic sections. That's better. I have been to a lot of organic sections that will have processed foods, like the stuff in a box and a can. Here's another tip that I just thought of I could add to this. Frozen food is an option as well, because frozen food does have more of the nutrients and minerals preserved. So if you can, try to get frozen before you get stuff in a box or a can. So the order would go preferably number one to buy fresh. So, and then if you can't do that, the second best option is frozen. The third best option is probably canned, although in a can, they put a lot of sodium, lots of sodium. You can rinse the stuff off, drain the water, and it's a little better. And then boxed food is probably the last. But like I said, there's exceptions. There are some really good organic companies out there that, they're working hard to make healthy food that's, easy for people to, make without, like, I have bought things in boxes that were not completely processed, but they were better than the regular stuff. So I just kind of stay away from the middle aisles. Those are the ones where, you're going to find all the stuff that the kids want, everything that's loaded with sugar and all that other bad stuff. So, on that note, I'm going to end this podcast, and remember those four questions. Is it a whole food? Has it been heavily processed? Has it been grown with antibiotics and pesticides? And has it had harmful chemicals added? Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.